Hi, how you going? Thank you. Have a good night.
Well, Dan, everyone thinks that a race broadcaster has this lavish broadcast box to call from, but nothing against Ballarat, but it's pretty snug and tight up here, mate.
Oh, it's one of the better ones, Andrew. Be careful.
Where did your interest stem from to become a race caller? At a young age, you told us that it all kicked off as an 8-year-old.
Well, it did, and prior to that I had some, experience in doing some phantom calls of a Melbourne Cup. So it stemmed from that, but I did have a real interest in wanting to call a race, call the races when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. If you asked me then, I would have said I wanted to be a race caller. And that was true, but at the time it could well have been a fad that passed. By the time I was 13, I might have wanted to be a vet or something else, but it didn't. It stuck with me, so the hobby became the profession. And in the end, by the time I was 20, I had a lot of experience, but I don't know where it stemmed from. Mum and Dad were purely Saturday punters, and mind you, 25 years ago, that's about all there was too. So, and I just got hooked, I think, on the mimicking of the race callers that I was listening to at the day. It sounded exciting, I think, and I just continued on with that.
100 out, Bone Crusher, our Waverley Star, stride for stride, nothing in it. Our Waverley Star, the rails, Bone Crusher the outside, and Bone Crusher races into equine immortality.
I really liked Bill Collins. I liked to listen to him, and of course you would see him back up on Channel 7 of the Saturday night calling the trots, and on the Sunday morning with the World of Sport, which was just so important, I think, in people's lives growing up in Melbourne, certainly through the 70s when I was. So it was Bill. Bill wasn't just a race caller, he was a television star, and you know, I think he set the standard to a degree of the last 20 years for race callers, because he could do radio, he could do television, he could do everything. And I think race callers started to think then, well, you know, to be a race caller, I don't just call races, I can be so many other things as well as a race caller, and I think that was through Bill Collins.
Down the back, Bluey McGee is a clear leader, about 4 lengths in front. Blackridge is second, but he is strong and he is running on now, and 6 lengths to Honcho Blessing. The leader is Bluey McGee. Blackridge is after it on the rails. Bluey McGee, Blackridge, they hit the line. Oh, nearly a dead heat.
Did you enjoy the greyhounds? Because it certainly seems to throw up, well, obviously it's quicker, and you have to be a lot quicker.
Great for the reflexes, the optic reflexes I thought were fantastic. It really complemented, I thought at the time, calling the gallops, because the gallops were pretty quick, but the greyhounds flew. So you had to be really good with the optics. And the harness racing's probably a little bit slower, so you got the opportunity to be more precise, but yet at the same time trying to alleviate being mundane, because they'll go around in a couple of laps and sometimes don't change for a while. So they're all completely different, but I love the greyhounds. I mean, I call the harness racing now, and you sometimes hear me calling the gallops races, sometimes even the Melbourne Cup, and I've obviously called the greyhounds. But I am a race caller, and I really have no preference. I love calling races, and to me, whether it's a dog or a horse, it doesn't bother me. As long as the job is right, I enjoy doing it.
Might and Power led a length and a half through to Remus, then Linesman. Might and Power the leader. Remus is coming at him. Remus after Might and Power. Might and Power into Remus, they hit it. Oh, it's close. Remus lunged on the outside. Can he have done it a second time? It's a photo in the Melbourne Cup.
Dan, I guess calling a Melbourne Cup, most people would think that's the pinnacle, but to call an Inter-Dominion in your home state and then have a local Quinella with Shaker Maker and Breeny's Fella, would have been something very special.
Andrew, there's no doubt. I mean, my wife's probably the closest person to me, or at least, you know, my family at home. And I said to her, this race is as important as any Melbourne Cup I've ever called.
Slug of Gin led 2 metres. Courage Under Fire second. Right around the outside, at it again, pulling out. 3 wide, safe and sound. Admiral's Avenue awaiting the express post lane. Favourites under the whip, Courage Under Fire. As they turn into the straight, Slug of Gin being swamped. Here comes Shaker. Shaker Maker let loose with a run. Look at him go. Shaker Maker hit the lead with John Justice. He's coming away. Flying Breeny's Fella. It's a Victorian Quinella. Shaker's done it. Shaker Maker's won the Inter-Dominion. John Justice and Shaker Maker have beaten Breeny's Fella and Happy Asset.
All the great callers and their great calls are always with great horses. So it happened. They were put on the stage and I was there to do my absolute best to colour it up and complement what they were doing. And it was fantastic. Shaker Maker won. Great horse. and he won the richest inter-dominion that we've ever held, and it was at Moonee Valley, and you know, it's once every 8 years that we're able to see that great race. So it was, that night was the Melbourne Cup.
Now that's a high, but the low, if I can go that way, was Lyell Creek in New Zealand. I think you've been really the only caller that's called him losing twice, or is it only once?
No, I've only called him getting beaten the once.
And that was in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Tell us, because there's a nice story about this one.
Yes. Well, of course, I was a special guest race caller, and I was honoured. They gave me 2 Group 1 races to call, a Group 1 size stakes, with Franco Air winning and beating some great 3-year-olds, and of course Lyell Creek. Now I have a special affinity with Lyell Creek, and I'm sure even Graham Bruton, who owns the horse, and Anthony Butt and Tim Butt, would say that, you know, if they had to rate a #1 fan club member, it'd be me. And I'd be honoured. I think I am. I love the horse. He's just fantastic. They asked me to call it, and I was rapt to do so. Everyone expected him to win. I expected him to win too. He was money back. And in the racebook comment, and there's a huge crowd, as you can imagine, at on the day at Daddington, the comment in the book was, surely the world will end if Lyell Creek is beaten, a play on words to my comments when Courage Under Fire was beaten by Kiema Kid.
Courage Under Fire in front. Kiema Kid's grabbed him. Kiema Kid's going to win. The world must be ending. Courage Under Fire's got beaten.
It certainly was a remarkable race that day, the day Courage Under Fire got beat. And the same thing happened with Lyell Creek.
Lyell Creek in front. Sonny Action trying to get to him. Lyell Creek in front, though he's lifting. Sonny Action driving. He galloped, and the world has ended. It's all over, Red Rover.
There are not that many moments that you experience on a racetrack where people are mortified, and they were that day. There was shock. Lyell Creek got beat, so they blame the Aussie. He got Courage Under Fire beat and Lyell Creek beat, and I had Steve McKee come up to me, the trainer of Sunline, not long after the race, and he put 100 in my hand. He said, for God's sake, never call Sunline, will you?
A wonderful acquisition for the ranks of Australian race broadcasters, and a great acquisition for Harness Racing Victoria, Dan Mielicki.
No doubt at all about that.
Now, Bill Dixon. He's been around for a long, long time. He started his career in far northern Queensland before coming to Brisbane some 20 years ago. We meet this training legend after the break on the best of In the Gig.